All right. Skateboarding is not harder than scootering. If you've been scootering for long enough, you know that scooters generally get hate from skateboarders. Not all skateboarders. I have plenty of skateboarder friends. It's definitely been a lot better than it was a while ago, but scooters absolutely still get hate from skateboarders. If you see any viral scooter clip and you go in the comments, it's gonna be skateboarders just hating. But I've seen one comment that specifically gets to me because it just makes no sense. It says that scooters ride scooters because it's easier than skateboarding, and for that, these people have no respect for the scooter riders, which is insane. You can argue all day which one's harder. It's all an opinion at the end of the day, but I'm here to prove that this whole idea is logically flawed from the beginning. Skateboarding is not harder than scootering because that makes no sense. How would you even compare these two things that are completely incomparable? It's like saying apples taste better than oranges. Whether you think apples taste better than oranges or not, there's no conclusion to be made about anything that applies to the real world. How would that even be measured? Why would it be fair to use taste as a comparison to compare the two? How would you account for all the different variables of different kinds of apples or oranges, or account for all the different opinions of the people trying them? That's just an insane thing to do in the real world. And the whole idea of comparing these unrelated ideas is just a logical fallacy. It's just like comparing the difficulty of skateboarding and scootering. It's insane. How would you even measure this difficulty? It's really just an opinion. And even if you could scientifically measure the difficulty of why skateboarding is harder than scootering or whatever, then why would difficulty be the standard? And why would you compare scootering to skateboarding and not something more related like BMX? You can't do a bar spin on a skateboard. How would you even compare that to the difficulty of a skateboard trick? And how would you compare two entire sports together anyway? Yeah, you can compare individual tricks, but how would you even compare individual tricks? Would you compare how long it takes to learn each trick? Would you compare the total number of tricks? You gotta say that scootering might have more tricks than skateboarding because there's more ways to twist it around with the bars and stuff. Skateboarding's just limited by just what the board can do. So scootering having a higher total number of tricks, how could you even compare that to skateboarding in a meaningful way? And why would the system that you would use to compare these things be the best way of comparing the sports? There's just no logical conclusion to draw about what the best way to do anything is, so it ends up being completely illogical to compare these in the first place. But let's say for some reason you can conclude that comparing scootering and skateboarding is a logical thing to do, and that comparing them by difficulty is somehow fair and realistic. And then you can go on to somehow scientifically measure the difficulty in an objective way. I'm still saying that it is illogical to compare the two, even if you could do all of that stuff. So let's say someone claims skateboarding has harder tricks, or that skateboarding has more tricks that are more difficult, and that you can somehow average that out to come up with a total difficulty that means that it's harder than scootering. Well, to verify that statement, you would need to create a list of every skate and scooter trick and then compare them together and see which one has more tricks, which one has harder tricks, and then quantify the total difficulty of each sport. Well, the only logical way to compare these tricks would be to come up with some sort of scale, like a unit of measurement to measure the difficulty of each trick. So some arbitrary scale of measurement, and then you would need to compare each individual tricks. Maybe you go, oh, a kickflip is 1 unit of difficulty, and a tailwhip is 0.5 units of difficulty. Well, if you look at that, you go, oh yeah, that skateboard trick is harder than that scooter trick. But again, that draws no conclusions about the difficulty of each sport. That literally just means that a kickflip is harder than a tailwhip. So even if you could fairly and scientifically measure the difficulty of each trick so that they can be compared, it would be illogical and impossible to compare the two. Because to make a list of every trick is an impossible task on its own. There are infinite scooter tricks and infinite skateboard tricks. You can name one trick and I can always add another trick onto it. So whatever the hardest skateboard trick that you name is, I can always name a harder scooter trick, assuming that you can even measure the difficulty in the first place. So the whole idea of comparing these is logically flawed if you can get over the impossible hurdles that you would need to compare these two in the first place. And there's a bunch of other illogical arguments that you can come up with in the first place to argue this forever. You could be like, oh, riding on fewer wheels is harder, or that riding without bars is harder, or whatever. It's all an opinion in the end. It's totally immeasurable and totally illogical to compare these two in the first place. But I'm not sure if that's my biggest problem with this statement. So the statement being, scooter riders ride a scooter because it's easier than skateboarding, and because of that, skaters have no respect for scooter. This is insane on so many levels. Like, how would you know what every scooter rider is thinking? How can you speculate on the motivation of every single scooter rider and know what they're thinking? And then, even if you could speculate and know for a fact what every scooter rider is thinking, and for some reason, let's say every scooter rider is just riding because it's easy, then why would you disrespect a person by saying, oh, it's easier, therefore I have no respect for you? That is just, like, insane. I can't imagine coming to that conclusion about somebody else's life choices. This video really has nothing to do with hating on skaters. This video pretty much exists strictly to deconstruct this comment. This comment really feels like an excuse because there's just so many mental gymnastics that are required to come to this conclusion. I'm sure any sane person would write this comment off immediately, and that's really what I did when I read it. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how just really out there this comment is, and it was being repeated all over the internet. I've seen this a bunch of times, so I just wanted to deconstruct it and maybe show people how illogical it is to say such a thing. So instead of concerning yourself with the choices of others, I challenge you all to go out to the skate park, respect everyone, learn some tricks, make some friends, and have a great time. If you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any opinions about this, please leave them in the comments. I would be very interested in seeing what you guys have to say. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you guys.